everyone, welcome to our Talking Tuesdays. It's 11:58 a.m., so very good morning. We are going to start in 2 minutes. We'll just wait for a couple of more people to join in, and let's wait for Divya as well. I hope you're enjoying our Talking Tuesdays conversations. We have been getting good feedback, and the entire month of August, we have had really amazing coffee conversations with so many people, so many guests on varied topics. So I hope you're enjoying our coffee conversations as much as we are enjoying them. So, hi everyone, hello, welcome to our Talking Tuesdays. As you know, our topic for today is the journey of the embryo. So let's just see if Divya is here. I'm going to add her. Hi Moksha. So hi Divya.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay,
So welcome everyone to our Talking Tuesdays. So our topic for today is the journey of the embryo. And thank you for being a part of our Talking Tuesdays for so many past Tuesdays. And I hope this continues, till the time. I don't even know because the topics are such that Divya can continue talking on them forever.
yeah. Okay, so welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Uh, we are doing kind of a continuation from what we spoke of last time, which was the intention of coming into manifestation. So for those who want to look at an embryo would be our first 8 weeks. And when we talk of 8 weeks, we are looking from the point of last monthly period. Just let's look at it from the point of last monthly period. In the first 2 weeks, the baby is actually not there, but the intention is quite there. So it's like a continuity of that intention. And then as the baby is conceived, so a lot of people think that conception is used as a very generic term, but in those 8 weeks, the baby from an intention becomes a person, complete. And that's quite a phenomenal journey. So as the egg and sperm meet, and we talked a little bit about this last time, that when the egg and sperm meet, it's not a random chance that this sperm and this egg decide to become one, or there's a union. So the intention of the mother, the frequency of the intention of the mother, the frequency of the intention of the father, and say the frequency, the intention of the baby. So we start to think of the baby as an energetic entity who wants to come into this world. And if we look at through various philosophical lenses, that's also true. We are just another realm in the great universe. I mean, if you want to look at it scientifically, that's true. We're a speck in the universe. But if you want to look at it philosophically from a spiritual angle, whatever your orientation is, it doesn't matter. There is always something bigger than us of which we are a part. There is a bigger picture, which also says the name that I have here, the big picture of Earth. It's kind of a play on that. So whatever that bigger realm is, we are transcending realms. It's like we are making a big journey, first energetically, then maybe as a thought of the mother and the father, and then into this form. And so the form conditions are, how we will come into form are dictated by the rules of this world. So think of a beautiful picture with layers. So the first layer is the broader blueprint of the divine being, and then on that there's an imprint or another blueprint that belongs to this world, and when they come together, that manifests into form. So through the work of craniosacral therapy, through the work of pre and perinatal psychology, I have put together these ideas, and for me, it's a beautiful story. So the story begins with the thought or the intention. And then, of course, that same vibration brings the sperm and the egg together. And of course, there's a biological process, there's a polarization, the different, genetic code, they come together. So, they form the haploids. And then what happens? So there is this mass of protoplasm. There's a nucleus which is now formed with, two chromosomes from both sides. But is it the new person? And if you think about it, have we just taken two parts and fixed that? So is the baby part mother, part father? Or is the baby a whole new third? And in some sense, the egg dissolves itself, saying, I no longer exist because my child will exist. And the father's sperm also says, okay, I also no longer exist. Because until they are existing, then the baby is just the sum of those parts. But in some ways, they surrender themselves to become something else or to facilitate something else. And that's kind of the parenting paradigm. My child is not the mother, it's not the father. The father and the mother dissolve themselves, which means they become receptive to the baby. They want to accept the baby's personality. And it starts right there in the beginning. And then this new cell or biomaterial is just lying there. But it's inert. Do you understand inert? It's just protoplasm and nucleus and proteins of DNA. That's it. And then, let's say, I mean, this is a story to tell. So here's the story I'm telling. That there is a embodiment or enlivenment. How does life come into us? But if we see it in the physicality of it, you will, and if you search on your Google this thing, calcium ion wave, and you will find a cell, and from one corner of the cell, there is a light wave that moves through the cell. And the cell is quite inert, it's quite still, nothing is really happening. And as that moves through, it will remind you of a scanner or light moving through something. And then suddenly the cell is alive and moving. So there are two really important parts of it. The fluidity of that, which means now I can be shaped to whatever. And the movement. The movement comes only after the wave moves through. So there's the biomaterial, there's the energetics, and then there is a bigger picture, the divine, that says, okay, I'm going to give you this. But the baby still has a choice of saying, do I want to come into being? So one of the things we want to talk about this embryology is how many choices a baby makes. And that is a recurrent theme of our life, that when we make choices, we feel alive. We have lived our life to our choice. That's such a huge, profound statement. People say, oh, but you didn't give me a choice. And that's coded from our very existence. So the baby makes a choice to say yes. And that's just one cell. And then it breaks into two and then becomes four. But it's still contained in that small casing that was one cell. So the new what is it, it's called a zygote, puts a protective boundary around it and keeps growing inside. Why is it keeping the boundary narrow? Because it has to move through the fallopian tube. If it gets too large, it will get stuck. It's a really tiny. So there's a lot of work going inside while the outside is just one shell, a hard boundary, but it's a protective boundary. And so from a zygote, it becomes a morula. Morula is like a mulberry. It's a word for a mulberry. Lots and lots and lots of just similar cells dividing away and making a whole mass. But what happens when we increase the matter inside a confined space? There is compression. And then there is expansion. Again, the same movement of life, the compression and the expansion. Where do we see it? We see it in our hearts. Every single beat of compression and then expansion. We see it in our lungs, a compression and then expansion. These are the way life moves through us, compression and then expansion. We see it in our lives. We find that we need quiet time. We want to minimize and make our circle really small, and then we want to expand and socialize again. So we see the same pattern of aliveness in the baby as he's densifying inside and compress. And in that compression, it makes a choice to become separate. So some of the cells become the side lining, it lines the boundary, and some collect together, even though every cell is the same. They make a decision. You're going to become the placenta, I'm going to become the baby. The placenta and the baby at this point are the same, from the same cell, and they become a choice. And it also begins to provide for itself. It creates a space for itself. Space can also mean the minute I say I have a space, I become an entity, individual. So literally that single cell is creating a boundary around itself that defines him as an individual by just being a mass of cells, a boundary of cells, and a fluid body in the middle. You also know that these cells are capable of self-sustaining, so they are getting no nutrition from the outside world. To continue to sustain themselves is a choice of manifestation. If I stop sustaining myself, I will die. And it's rolling down the fallopian tube, and it takes about 6 days to reach the end. And then it's ready for its expansion. But before it does that, it makes a choice. It makes a choice to fall out of the fallopian tube to some amount of distance in the uterus to embed. But from the baby's point of view, or from that cellular point of view, it's making a choice to leap off a tall building with the trust that my mother will hold me. And if you see comparison of the size of of now it is called a blastocyst. So the blastocyst to the size of the blastocyst to the side that it jumps is like jumping off an 11-story building. Do we have the leap of faith? So there is confidence, trust, and there is surrender. And the faith that I will be held, and the surrender or the choice of making that leap still lies with the baby. And as it pushes through, the shell opens up. It's called hatching of the baby. And it falls into the lining of the uterus. But it's not embedded on the top. The uterus lining literally encases it inside. And at this point, this baby, who is about 6 days, 7 days old, is self-sustaining, is carrying his own food in a small yolk sac. Some of its own cells have given themselves up to sustain the larger picture. That's community. We hear Bruce Lipton talk about community of cells. We are what? We are community of cells. And each of us have a specific function. But it's interesting that none of these cells are wondering, I should save myself so that somebody else can do the work. They're all willing to live their utility. And so karma, not kal. They're not attached to being alive, but yet they're alive. And they choose to dissolve themselves so that something else may arise. It's a really wonderful symbolism to learn from the embryo, the egg, the sperm, ourselves, that we are willing to have purpose and dissolve ourselves so that something else may arise itself. And that movement, again, the contraction of us, the compression or the dying of us, and the coming back of something bigger or different, is yet the continuity of life. So this embryo is now embedded. Is the mother aware? Not yet, because she hasn't yet missed a period. And this baby is self-sufficient and then starts a dialogue with the mother saying, okay, I'm here. But the mother's body, remember, because of the intention, because of that frequency, reaches out to meet the baby. Now, whether this is a planned pregnancy, whether this is an unplanned pregnancy, whether this is a pregnancy you wanted or did not want, whether this is a pregnancy that has arisen from the best of circumstances or the worst of it, that is carried without judgment as the reality of your life in your tissue, and the baby meets it. And then there may be a, well, I'd like to call it a divine exchange, an understanding between both parties, a sense of respect for each other, and an acceptance of each other to say, what is the circumstances in which you are receiving me? And is your intention, where do you find yourself? And then that baby may make a choice to stay or not stay. So in the worst circumstances, if there is even the sliver of hope in the mother, or joy, or love, or intention in the mother, not for her circumstances, but the love for this baby, the baby may stay. But even the best of circumstances, the baby finds a hostile, a underlying hostile environment, it may make a choice to say no. And of course, there are large variations in the middle where the mother and the baby are making choices. So while we look at the world as an achievement, oh, I'm planning a baby, we've had sex, and I've conceived, tick, 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 that's not the truth of the story of your body and the baby. It's actually not the truth of you and your baby. It's the truth of a narrative that is stopping you from feeling inside. If you're hearing far too many voices in your head, you cannot hear the inner voice. So the mindfulness, the quiet need, it serves a purpose of saying, how deep does this well go of humanity? Because at the base of it is that unconditional love we spoke of last time and we talk of many times. And then the baby is received. And while the baby is moving towards the mother is also moving towards the baby, creating those linkages that becomes the placenta. So placenta is a mass of cells that gets together, which come from the trophoblast, which is the outside layer of the blastocyst, and that creates the body of it. And the blood vessels from the baby and the blood vessels of the mother lie like this. They don't touch, but they mutually exist.
Sorry.
Mutually exist is such a wonderful word. We were doing a coffee call, and I heard him, I think it was Himani Dalgia, who said that nobody's ever independent. We are interdependent. And, and that is true at any age, even from the beginning. Even though our bodies fight outside bodies when they come in as invasions or infections, we have a huge immune system. But in this case, the mother's immune system actually drops, welcome the baby. And then depending on who she is. So we want to talk of it as a process that has been tuned for two people to continuously have a conversation, right? So we create a space around us that makes us individuals, but we are also created in the space between our parents, between families, because those are the spaces where the interaction takes place. So we are also being created that way. And that, what are we at that moment? Just a mass of cells. And that cell will then will define itself in two layers. On one side of the layer is the amniotic fluid, and the other side is the yolk sac feeding to the outside world and the inside world. And we're just the same. In fact, each cell was the same, and now we have a slight difference because we have to. And then something very miraculous happens to us. We get oriented to this world. What is orientation? How do you know what is in front of you, what is behind you, what is on the right, what is on the left, what is up, what is below? It's an orientation to your space. So a tiny groove starts, from the base that tells us this is our bottom. It could have been like this. This is our bottom. And it moves here. And all the cells here then rush to fill up the gap between the two layers. And we become three-layered. But this is not it. In this period, our entire three layers roll up upon each other. So if they, let's pick up a sheet, that's our disk, and then we will roll up to become a three-dimensional being. So there will be a tube from the back that becomes our neural tube, and then as we roll up, the inner layer becomes our gut tube. So see how we are, our nose, mouth, throat, then lungs grow out of it and down into the stomach, all the way to our anus, and all the organs that grow out of it, the tubes that will grow out of it, is the first layer. The outer layer, which is also our brain, will become our skin. So our skin and brain are coming from the same germ layer. And the inside layer becomes our bones and tissues that fill up the space between our gut tube and our skin. And so we are three-dimensional beings now. And this is less than 8 weeks of gestation, which is we are still about missing the period, getting to know. So by about 22 days from that conception, from that decision, the heart is formed. And on the tube, the heart is formed on top. So if this was me at that point, this is my heart. And as my brain, which is the outer layer of me, grows, my heart comes to its place where it's resting now, because this grows over the heart. So we have a beautiful saying when we talk about how our beginnings work. In the beginning, there is a heart. And without the heart, we are not human. We don't exist, whether physically, because it's pumping blood for us, whether it is emotionally, because that's where you feel. But it is the first center of where we are looking at existence. And only then does our brain form on top. And it's interesting, if you see pictures of embryos that small, they are looking down like this towards. So we grow our bodies and us looking at our heart. And that is what we can do all the time. We're following the same patterns. We are compressing in, then rolling out. So the pattern of coming in and coming out makes us truly alive, but it also allows us to come into our new selves over and over again. It's a testament to our growth as human beings. If we didn't do that, and if we don't do it now, we will be stuck in a place where we had defined ourselves, or we had let others define us. Whether it is a painful journey in, or a spiritual journey in, or a conscious or mindful journey in, or an introspective journey in, doesn't matter. The in and out movement symbolizes life, because it symbolizes growth. It cannot happen if we are like this. So here we are looking at our heart, and the same neural connections are in our heart. So our heart informs our brain of many perceptions that we have not yet understood in science, but we have felt them as lived experiences. And then our hands arise, our eyes, our ears, everything is earmarked at 8 weeks of gestation. We are us, complete. And then the details get put in. And of course, how adaptive we are, because we're moving in and out, that each detail as we refine, we are still checking with our mother, with our environment. Hello, what do you think is appropriate for me? Do you think this is appropriate for me? But what is really important is to understand that we started with an energetic field. And then on that energetic field, we laid the field of this world, and then we lead the field of biology. So let's not forget energetic fields, which could be thoughts. Thoughts are energy, emotions. Of course, they have a physical component, but they also have a field. So that field phenomena shapes us into who we are. We might have two heads or eight fingers because that's the signaling we got. So there's a wonderful video by the Tufts University of a tadpole becoming a frog. And what they see is that there is a light print, like an outline lighted up before each cell migrates to that place to become that thing. It's no different from what you see in the calcium ion wave. That means there is a bioelectric signaling. We have proof of that. I mean, that's all the proof we have. So just because we don't understand these phenomena doesn't mean they don't occur. They do occur. And therefore, if we just draw inspiration from what our prints were, what we do know, that will set up patterns for what we can be. And of course, when we talk about, if we talk about deformities, we talk about problems, those are interferences in that bioelectric field at appropriate times. So when the heart is being formed at around before 22 days, what is the field at that time will be the baseline of the heart? Or when the kidneys are being refined, what would that be? That would say that we should stay in health all the time, but this is not something new. I'm not saying anything new to you. We should be in a state of well-being at all times. We should be in a state of emotional well-being at all times. We do have highs and lows on our health, both emotionally and physically. It's not important how up or down we went. It's important how we return to baseline. And what offers us that baseline? I'm going to make it really simple. What offers us that baseline? It's the everyday, boring, mundane value that you bring to your life. That is the baseline. Who do you generally interact with? What is the quality of that interaction? What do you generally eat? What is the quality of that food? How do you receive emotions and food? That is the quality of your life. These are your bioelectric fields. And as you change them today, so with cranial work, it's interesting that we are repairing today by taking the imprint of the embryo. What is even more phenomenal for me is this capacity to heal and to shape if you have children who are already born, if you have children who are old. I have a child who's 24 years old. Can I influence that field phenomena from each cellular memory by changing today and not worrying about the past? I can. That's healing. That is the truth of healing capacities of our body. So the first 8 weeks are very fundamental for us. And mostly it's run on a design that is self-perpetuated. There is, in cranial work, we call it the breath of life, which breathes or enlivens us in that very first moment, which we call calcium ion wave, and therefore at every development stage passes through us. But as we work, as we live, as we are, it is transmutating or moving through us at every given moment. It's like gravitational field or magnetic field, and it is working with our midline. Look at all the different modalities that talk about posture, that talk about midline, that talk, where does the kundalini rise? What is it's an energetic wave that moves up. How many times in different modalities, scientific, spiritual, as if they are different, they are not, do we talk about the midline orientation as the fundamental orientation of your being? It's called your core. So many different ways of saying the same thing. So, and the reason why we're not looking at it is because we are taking these ideas at a very new cortical level. We want an explanation. We want an explanation in words. The words that somebody is saying mean different to us, so there's no explanation. However, if we go back and say, simple thing, as I spoke, for the next minute or so, just observe when you hear me talk about these things, what happens in your body. And even if there was a discordant note, it made you uncomfortable. Pay attention. Choice. Here we talk about that fundamental choice again. Pay attention to what make you feel welcome, what make you feel more comfortable. And that is the choice you can make today. Taking that gist from your embryological period, and if you're pregnant or you're hoping to have a baby or you do have babies, then holding that intention of the mother, perhaps even of the father, while being in touch with your child, maybe a hand if he's older or just curling up in bed, and holding that feel might reorient us. So when our intentional field and the breath of life come into synchronicity, that's where the amplitude increases. That's where the change happens. That's where the healing happens. That's where the magic will happen. And so that's my story of the journey of the embryo, which is now at 8 weeks, everything that human is, and it begins the next step of refining the parts, developing the parts, and building on that foundation. The embryological period is the foundation, the fundamental foundation of us being.
So that's lovely, Divya. Just one thought came to my mind. We heard Kate White also talk about it, about cellular memory, and you also kind of mentioned it, while you were explaining it. So can you just explain a bit more in terms of cellular memory? Does that actually start at the embryo level, or is it at 8 weeks, like you said, it's
No,
all
it starts even before conception because every cell of the mother has a memory. So think whose memory does the mother have?
correct?
For a woman who's, say, 28 years of age and conceiving, that egg, trace it back. Whose memory, what memories does it carry? And the memory is not like, oh, I remember, that
Yeah.
photograph that reminds me. That memory is about, I can move towards it, or, oh my God, I need to make myself smaller, or I work in a certain way, or, there are so many different ways that memory, but it's a cellular memory. It tells the cell to function in a certain way because that's the lived experience. So it's the complete lived experience of the mother, but that's not in isolation. It is her early imprints, but that's not in isolation. It's the
Correct.
imprints of her mother and the mother before that. So all the wars we worked through, all the famines, all the droughts, all the floods, all the emotional heartbreak, it's all that memory that is there. And that is also a signal to that intention to say, do you really want this life with this baggage? And the child says, no, it's not a baggage. That's what I choose. So, if you look at a chance of defining it through free will, there is free will. The baby is making a choice. And if you take it through the thing that I have to manifest into this world because of my own purpose to be achieved, you can take it in that sense. You can take it in any sense, but it will make sense because uh, there is a component of everything in what we are talking of right now. And the father's memory, what does that cell carry? So what all is the child coming together? But it's not just the part. Because of his own choice, because of that, what some of people in pre and perinatal psychology call mysterium, the mysterious element of it, the magical element of it. How much of that memory is going to be valued by this new self will also determine by what it's meeting. Yes, there are floods. Yes, there is war. Yes, there is heartache. Yes, there is famine. But I have love, welcome, abundance, joy. So which one will it trigger when it shakes its body? It's never we are stuck with anything. It's always what are our possibilities, and within those possibilities, what is my choice? Does that
So,
make sense?
absolutely. I don't know if it's related to this topic, but just a thought came to my mind when you said the intention of the cell. Uh, can there be a linkage in terms of the unexplained miscarriages that a woman
Healthy
has?
women having them, healthy women having them, and then babies born out of terror, violence. What is going on? Unless we don't think of this as a dimension beyond what we can linearly understand, we will never be able to explain it. And unless we don't settle and introspect on that aspect. So the first step is that the baby has a choice. Isn't that what we want for ourselves?
Right.
So the baby has a choice. So he's making a choice. He's making a choice to come into this form, to come into this world as it is. That's acceptance, just as it is. I don't want to change a single thing about my mother or my father or the world, because that's what I'm going to move through. That is trust, faith, and surrender, all three together. And they do go together. There's no way they can be together. So the faith is very internal, but the trust is on the outside. So they go hand in hand. And that at every point. But somewhere down the line, because of the voices of outside, you know, we get so caught up or we get so distracted that we forget that inside voice that is always there. There are a lot of retreats people do with silence, and they find that a lot of grief comes up, a lot of trauma comes up. Some of it is unexplainable because it's not theirs. It's carried in their cellular. But are we listening, or are we just being distracted? So that outward and inward movement. If you just do any movement that moves you out and in and do it many times, see what's happening to me. I'm already rocking. All kinds of rocking movements. Why do they appeal to us? Why do rhythms appeal to us? We are not meant to be human doings. And these five senses that we have that take in the world, if you look at some of the philosophies, they say they are kriya indriya, they are action organs, sensory organs. We take in the world, we hear, we work in the outside world, but they're also called gyan indriya, which is instruments of knowledge. What knowledge? To look inside. Your eyes don't only look outside, they also look inside. So when you close your eyes and you feel your body, you're looking inside. And when you move in and out, you find that presence that allows you to be, well, a human being, but allows you capacity to tap into all that it is there. And if you look at the journey of the embryo, the resourcefulness, the choices, the leap of faith, the surrender, he's not afraid of the compression. The compression defines the space. And then the expansion. To be able to stay with compression and to be able to enjoy expansion and then go back into compression. These are the lessons that the journey of the embryo gives. And we hold them. I mean, we hold them in many modalities. Craniosacral therapy is built on this idea because every cell is a hologram of our whole. Every cell carries that embryo and the potential that it had to be whoever it wants, given the different circumstances. Can we change those circumstances for ourselves? Can we change the perception of those circumstances? Not all embryos need healthy linings, perhaps, but are the linings unhappy? Is there grief? Was there a miscarriage before me? The whole cellular phenomena of the mother is carrying grief. Was this violent? The whole cellular phenomena is carrying trauma. And we are more than just that event or just that, that story. It taps into that and then says, okay, what is her potential and what is my potential and do I want to stay with this? And yes, I do. And that is why Sometimes when we think very linearly, only healthy and happy women should be having babies, and the answer to all infertility should be happy, and then you'll have a baby. But that's not true. And unless we don't pay attention to this aspect of how we manifest, how are we inviting our children? Because if it becomes, I want to have a child, then I have come before the child. And you come into my life is you before me, my life. You come even before my life. That is mother. So just these understandings, just this awareness, because it's an energetic field, it's a bioelectric signal. Just the awareness can change.
So, Divya, because I heard, Barbara Decker talk about it just recently about, prenatal bonding. So, do you think, that aspect of, um, somebody who is already conceived, can bonding with the baby prenatally kind of, help the baby, because they're already bringing those imprints with them. So can that help?
Of course. So the first thing is that the intention is there. The attention will follow the intention, like it or not. So a mother who say did not plan a baby and still is in a difficult part of her relationship, but finds herself pregnant. I work with single moms, not always choosing to be a mother, but found herself pregnant, and then the relationship didn't last because the intention is to love the baby. The attention goes there. But more importantly is the presence. What is the quality? That attention to the baby, the mindfulness around this will then become the feel. Because how we are extends outside of ourselves. If you see the Heart Math
Correct.
Institute research, they say your heart throws a EMR, electromagnetic radiation field of about 15 feet. And because of the rhythms that they have, the most condensed one is at 3 feet. Now the baby is growing within that 3 feet. So it's constantly being informed by the field, not by what we are eating. That too, that's important. But the field, if the field is not paying, if the quality of the field is not really rich, really embodied, sparkly, attention is not at the baby, then it doesn't matter what we are eating because it can only do so much. If you have a certain, if you have a certain music system which has a sound quality really low, no matter how good your player is, the sound quality is low. What do you need in the middle? Suppose you can't change the speaker. What do you put in the middle? An amplifier. How does it amplify? It takes the frequencies, it matches the frequencies, and that amplifies it. So your presence, your field is the amplifier to whatever you're putting into the baby or whatever the field of the baby is. When you are in the same resonance, it works when the egg shows the spark. The amplitude increases, the power increases, the voltage of it increases. That's how he moves through the shell. It works at every given moment. What do you surround yourself with? Say you're a really positive and happy person, but you're constantly making people who are saying, no, but this can't happen. They're not even unhappy. They're just pessimistic. No, but you don't understand. Nothing can be. And remember, the world works on that narrative. If you put on the television, if you open up the newspaper, you're just being told what isn't working. Imagine
Correct.
hearing it day in and day out. That will dampen your frequency a little bit, wouldn't it? It will dampen your amplitude because you're resisting it all the time. But say if you meet three people who say, yeah, okay, let's do something. That's how people start their businesses in garages. कि चलिए आप करते हैं. That's amplifying the frequency of an intention to do something. Of course, it needs organization. Of course, it needs direction. Of course, we need food, we need air, we need water, we need sleep, we need to work our muscles, we need to exercise, we need to do so much more. But that is also very, very key. So I call it intention, attention, and power of presence. It starts with an intention, but that's not enough. Then you have to bring your attention. You have to move the energetic to this world. And then you have to follow the rules of this world, which is the physicality of it, to take it, which is how it happens. So all the prenatal. So prenatal bonding is intention in action.
Correct.
And it's not like, oh, my intention is to have a healthy baby, so I'm going to do some prenatal bonding. No, that's not bonding.
Yeah.
My intention is to love this baby, and then I pay attention to the baby, and then love arises in me, and then the baby bathes in that chemicals of love and has a felt sense of what is a felt sense of love? When you just feel touched by somebody, you feel they're caring. How does it feel in your body? Because the baby only feels that because it's cellular. There's no brain, there's no thinking capacity, there's no evaluation capacity. It's just a sensation. Oh, such a wonderful sensation. I want more of it. And then when he comes out in the world and looks at his mother and she speaks, he feels the same sensation. Oh my God, that's what love was. And it happened because of this woman. And that's my relationship with this woman. Then he grows bigger. And then he meets a girlfriend. And he has the same feeling again. It's like, oh, that I really love her. I know what love is. And that's cellular meaning. That's implicit meaning. It's
Beautiful.
procedural, it's gestures, it's postures, it's what words have meaning for. So it's not the word, it's the expression of the word. So the word center is in the left part, the analytical part of our brain, which comes much later. But the expression that that word will convey is more in the right part of our brain, which tells us what we feel before we can put it into the word. Otherwise, you can say, I love you. So you can say, oh, I love you. I love you, Tanvi. I love pizza. I love my house. Oh, I love my car. Does it mean the same thing? So
Right.
words are only that much.
All right. That was great. Anyone, if you have any questions related to
Comments
this
would be
topic,
great. Comments would be
comments, we
great.
have
I'd love to
got
hear a point of view.
Neha says such deep and beautiful perspective. It's almost like darshan of the self.
What else is it
Uh,
indeed? If the soul resides, if the Param Atma resides in us, then it is the inward darshan of the divine, isn't it?
yeah.
So Hindu philosophy is based somewhat. I mean, I can relate because I've somewhat explored it. I can't say for anybody else, but I'm sure all roads lead to God or to the divine or to the creator or to that magnificent, larger than life consciousness. All roads lead um, because if it's the truth, it's universal.
Beautiful perspective. Subhashini is
So
also
only comments.
actually, Subhashini was asking for the calcium ion wave link. She was not able to find it, so I've told her that,
We
we'll be
can
sending it
post
to her
it on
separately.
our. We can post
We'll
it on
post
My
it.
Child First.
Yes, we'll post it there. So,
It's
yes,
in Italian. The explanation is in Italian.
but
Many,
the
many
video,
beautiful images from
beautiful images, yes.
Leah, Lennart, excuse me, Lennart Nielsen's work. It says the child is born. He's done a complete pictorial book on early photography of the embryo, a day old. Also, different hormones. What do they look like? So that kind of stuff. If you look, don't think the word. Don't look at the process. Look at the picture and say, when I look at the picture, what do I feel? But if something uncomfortable comes up, which it can, because world is majority meeting resistance. I mean, that's the way economics work. If it meets resistance, make a choice to say, what would make me feel comfortable? What would make me feel welcome? And name that for yourself.
Awesome. So, any other questions? Anyone? Any comments? We're happy to take them now. Um, else, we are going to see you for our
But I
coffee conversations. We have We have our coffee conversation for this week starting tonight at 9 p.m. Through Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We have a very, very good and interesting lineup for this week. We're starting with storytelling today. And then, actually, in continuation to this topic, we have somebody talking on the 29th of August, Mr. Shiva Balwadi. He'll be talking about, ancient wisdom in prenatal period. So that will be an interesting topic. So if anyone of you would like to, attend that session, it's on the 29th. We have somebody talking on adoption. We have somebody talking on different complementary therapies during, and after birth. And
They're
yeah,
all
so
actually along the same line, if you think.
yes.
I mean, think about what I just spoke and knowing that this baby will be given up, that the field will be disrupted. And can we make repair there? Because our pursuit will not always be to talk about problems. We will never focus on the problem. We will always say, so what else is possible? Because anybody can see the problem. But I think the true human value and appreciating humanity comes from saying, so what more can we do? Where is the healing lie? Where is the health lie? Where is the repair lie? And so each of them will then talk about repair, whether it's complementary distinct, whether it's ancient wisdom, whether it is adoption. We will talk about repair.
And we also have Swati Jagdish talking on sexual education.
Yes.
So
Because a
that's
large part of our field is informed by how we see ourselves. And then that's what we offer to our children. That should be a very, very good understanding of how we view ourselves from an outside perspective, rather than this inside of faith and discernment. Thank you, Tanvi. This is a very, very close subject to my heart. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here on Talking Tuesdays. Divya and I look forward to
Yeah.
Tuesdays, and yeah, because that's our time of interacting and getting feedback, and what else can we do? That also, if you have a feedback for us, we're more than happy to take it up. And thank you all. See you all next Tuesday.
Yeah, make a
And
suggestion on the topic, Tanvi. That would
yes,
be great.
absolutely. That'll be great. So
Write
if you
into
have
us
any
and say
suggestions,
what you would like us to explore with you.
yes. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next Tuesday. See you tonight. Bye bye.